What's going on? Welcome to Tech with Sean, and today we're putting together a $1,500 4K gaming PC with the RTX 3070. Okay, let's run through the parts real quick that I'm going to use in this build. For the processor, we have the i9-9900K, and I got that in a Black Friday combo with this Gigabyte Z390 Gaming X motherboard, and together they were both $390 total, so that's a pretty decent deal for a fast 8-core 16-thread chip. For the case, I got another Black Friday deal. This is the Corsair 4000D Airflow, and this is the black version. For the graphics card at the heart of this beast, we're going to use the Gigabyte RTX 3070 Gaming OC. For the cooler, another Black Friday deal, I picked up this Corsair H100i Pro, and that was on sale at Best Buy, as was the Corsair RM750 power supply, and we're going to use that. 750 watts, going to be totally fine for this 3070. This was just regular price, but it wasn't too expensive. I went ahead and picked up a 16 gig kit of 3200 megahertz Corsair Vengeance RAM. Another Black Friday deal for the storage, I picked up this SanDisk 1TB NVMe SSD, and these were marked down under $100 at Best Buy. It's not as fast as something like the Samsung Evos, but for the price, it's hard to beat for a gaming machine. Alright, we've got a couple more items to fill out the build. When I was getting this combo, this motherboard was really cheap in there, so it was a good deal, but I wasn't really paying attention when I picked out the case, and this has front USB-C, but this motherboard does not have front USB-C headers on it, so I picked this up on Amazon, and this is basically a PCI card, and it has a USB-C header on it, so I'm just going to install this, and then we'll have working front USB-C on the case. And the last thing we got is some fans. Now, I'm not going for RGB on this build, we're just going to kind of keep it more plain looking, and this comes with two fans in it, and there's two fans on the AIO, but for my cooler that I have in my main machine, this is the stock Corsair cooler fans, so I'm just going to go ahead and swap out the two included fans with these so that they match the ones on the cooler, and it all just looks seamless. Okay, that was a rundown of all the parts I'm using. I guess there's nothing left to do now but just put it together. Alright, we're back here. It's the next day. I've gotten Windows and drivers installed, got some games installed and everything, so let's jump into some gameplay and see how it handles stuff at 4K. These are the settings I'm running at, so first let's jump in and take a look at Devil May Cry 5. This is a fast-paced action game, and it still looks really nice, and this was able to handle it at those settings no problem at 4K. it really didn't have any drops or struggles at all, and everything held up really well through my gameplay session. I went through a couple of different levels and I didn't really have any problems whatsoever with the 3070 running at 4K. Next up, we got Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and here you can see I have a mix of different settings. I have some stuff up on very high, other stuff down on medium like the clouds, just to, make sure the frame rate stays up. And here we go, the temperatures are staying in check and the frame rate is staying nice and playable. You'll notice that the GPU is running at 2025 megahertz. I've gone in and set a custom point on the voltage curve so it runs at 0.95 volts at 2025 megahertz. I haven't seen any crashes from this and it's been running solidly in all the games I've thrown at it. Enough Assassin's Creed though, I wanted to try something really demanding. So next I jumped into some Doom 2. This is a classic. Of course this was going to play it fine, but I just wanted to throw it in there for chuckles. And it's kind of funny to see what the afterburner overlay looks like in there. It doesn't give you all of the metrics that you usually would get. And it says that this is running at about 30 frames a second, but it felt smooth just like I'd always remembered Doom 2 playing. So if you get an RTX 3070, don't worry, you're not going to have any problems running Doom 2 on it. Next, we're jumping into some Final Fantasy XII HD, and these are the settings I'm running at. We got 4K, mostly everything on high settings, except for the ambient occlusion is at half resolution. If you have that ambient occlusion at full resolution when you run it at 4K, it kills your frame rate on basically every card I've ever tried. But you can see here we're running through the big city, and this is one of the densest areas in the game probably, and that's not a problem at all. Next up, we got the good old Forza Horizon 4 benchmark. This is running at 4K Ultra, and this put up really solid frame rate. If you have one of those C9 OLED TVs or whatever, this will be able to take advantage of that 4K 120 Hz. If you're playing on a TV like mine that does 4K 60 frames, you could probably even turn up the MSAA to make everything look a little bit crispier. Because here when we come up to the results, you'll see that we got an average of 109 frames per second at 4K Ultra on the 3070, so that is going to be a real good experience for playing some Forza. And lastly, we got Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, this is running at 4K, but I didn't want to turn much stuff down to medium or anything, so what I did was set the resolution scaling for 90%. And then I was able to run some other settings up a little higher. And to me, sitting like maybe 6 or 7 feet away from a 65-inch TV, I couldn't really tell the difference between the 9/10 resolution scaling and native 4K. So I just decided I'd rather use a little bit of scaling and be able to run higher settings than having to turn stuff down. But this played really smoothly. I messed around with it for a little bit. Here around the camp I was running it, I have VSync turned off so you can see how many frames it's spitting out. But this is a game that honestly I usually play with VSync on because it just makes it feel a little bit smoother and it's not really fast paced or anything like that. The camp here is one of the most intense areas of the game, so if it runs good there or in San Denis, you know that you're going to be good for the rest of the game. Here we are going into Valentine real quick, and this has VSync turned on in this part, so this is how I would typically play the game. It just feels a little bit smoother, and you don't have any screen tearing or anything like that. But coming through the downtown part here, you can see that our frame rate stays at a solid 60, and our GPU usage is sitting right about 90%, maybe 85 or 90, and our temperatures are really nice. You can see that the 2070 is under 60 degrees. Okay, well that's about it for this little 3070 4K build. Now, I was really impressed with the final result. This thing handled the 4K games really good, and the temperatures and noise were really in check. That 4000D airflow, it's a little bigger of a case, and it has really good airflow, so you'll notice that when you were looking at the afterburner overlay in those gaming results, our temperatures were really low, even overclocked on the GPU. Thanks for watching along on this build. I hope it was entertaining. Make sure to drop a like down below if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.